Even though it was summer, the Irish Sea remained bitterly cold, especially in the middle of the night. And while Fergus had made this trip multiple times, sleeping was nearly non-existent on the 2-day trip to the west coast of Britain. He lay there awake, spattered by sea mist, wrapped in a sheepskin blanket. Angry he could not rest his mind, but comforted by the payment he'd soon make for their stolen goods. Rome had been falling, and was just about to be plundered by Germanic Visigoths. As the Roman navy withdrew from the seas, the Irish were free to do as they pleased, namely, raid and plunder the British Isles and the wealthy Roman citizens that inhabited them. From the new scent and changing sounds, Fergus knew that their small boat was nearing their destination, a place called Banvetta Berne. He rose up to see forms of land about a mile away. Any exhaustion the crew might have felt now rapidly vanished at their sight. Adrenaline started to course through their collective veins. Some mumbled a ritualistic prayer to their gods, while others acknowledged their clan's leader and king. Fergus did neither. He tucked his gear away, took a lengthy swill of drink, and readied his weapons along with the 12 other Irish mercenaries. Once the boat avoided the jagged rocks and found a relatively smooth place to ground, the men mechanically exited in deadly silence. They knew what to do and worked precisely. And even though the unprotected villa was hundreds of yards from the shore, there was no talk above a whisper. 2 men stayed behind to ready the boat for launch, as the others started to ascend the short but inescapable 30-foot precipice that wrapped around most of the island. Once on top, the gang walked quickly through the tall grass with chains, clubs, knives, and short swords in hand. By moonlight, the size and layout of the villa gradually appeared more clear as they approached. Silhouettes of sheep scattered the countryside. So far, there were no signs of dogs. With 4 others from about 80 yards out, Fergus started to angle in the direction of the main house, while the other 5 started towards the detached sleeping quarters for the slaves. It was a modest-sized home, nice enough to have 3 or 4 slaves, but unprotected and far enough away from any other villa or civil structure that might be able to offer help. Like many other settlements, there was a main house with a courtyard and a small farm. Gardens usually separated the family's dwelling from the slaves' sleeping quarters. Storage sheds and a bathhouse were usually nearby. All of this was surrounded by a 4 or 5 foot stone wall that, while served a purpose, was more decorative than functional. Rural Britons were not completely naive about the barbarians from the north. There was just little they could do in response if they were ever attacked. Just when Fergus looked over his shoulder to check behind him, the silence of the spring night fearfully broke. Yards from the main house, a large dog stood up and barked with fierce aggression. Although the men were not completely caught off guard, their hearts had all momentarily jumped. But like clockwork, they all flew into orchestrated action. The man next to Fergus sprinted directly towards the giant hound to quell the alarm. Unsure of what was charging at him, the large canine backpedaled for a quick second just before his innate desire to attack kicked in. An instant before the assailant and dog leaped at each other, the pirate swung his arm fully back, then forward. The spiked club in his fixed grip sunk deep into the side of the wolf's head, quickly neutralizing the threat. The hound's life ended with 2 more blows of quick succession. The last dying sound of the dog was barely audible by the time Fergus reached the entrance of the villa.